Solomon was a beloved king with a troubling story. The Bible is a complete and impartial book that does not shield us from the imperfections of our faith heroes. It's hard to think of kings fondly remembered in the Bible without including Solomon. He will always be remembered as a king who loved God so much that he offered 1,000 burnt offerings, asked for wisdom, and shone with such unusual understanding that he brought peace and ended wars, as reported in 1 Kings chapter 3, verses 3 to 14. Solomon demonstrated his love for the Lord by following the instructions given to him by his father David. He also offered sacrifices and burned incense on the high places. The king went to Gibeon to offer sacrifices because that was the most important high place. There, Solomon offered 1,000 offerings on the altar. That night, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream and said, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." Solomon replied, "You have shown great kindness to your servant, my father David, because he was faithful to you, righteous and upright in heart. You have continued this great kindness to him by giving him a son to sit on his throne to this very day. Now, Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David, but I am only a little child and do not know how to carry out my duties. Here I am in the middle of your chosen people, a great people, too numerous to count or number. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong, for who is able to govern this great people of yours?" The Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for this. He said, "Since you have asked for this, and not for long life or wealth for yourself, nor have asked for the death of your enemies, but for discernment in administering justice, I will do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never have been anyone like you, nor will there ever be. Moreover, I will give you what you have not asked for, both wealth and honor, so that in your lifetime you will have no equal among kings. And if you walk in obedience to me and keep my decrees and commands as David your father did, I will give you a long life." Solomon became famous for his popularity due to his depth of knowledge and solutions. He wrote some of the most well-known books of the Bible, such as Ecclesiastes, Song of Songs, and Proverbs, which are filled with wisdom. In these books, he wrote many wise words, quotations, songs, and proverbs that are so profound that we still explore them today. Examples of these pearls of wisdom are Proverbs chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. "My son, pay attention to my wisdom, turn your ear to my words of insight, that you may maintain discretion and your lips may preserve knowledge." Proverbs chapter 9, verse 10. "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding." Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 and 11. "There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end." Solomon was a wise man who was easy to ignore and love. Therefore, many people came from far and near to seek his wisdom, wealth, or counsel, as described in 1 Kings chapter 10, verses 1 to 18. When the Queen of Sheba heard about Solomon's fame, she came to Jerusalem to test Solomon with hard questions. She arrived with a very large caravan, camels carrying spices, large quantities of gold, and precious stones. When she met with Solomon, she talked with him about all that was on her mind. Solomon answered all her questions. Nothing was too hard for the king to explain to her. When the Queen of Sheba saw all of Solomon's wisdom, the palace he had built, the food on his table, the seating of his officials, the attending servants in their robes, his cupbearers, and the burnt offerings he made at the temple of the Lord, she was overwhelmed. She said to the king, "The report I heard in my own country about your achievements and your wisdom is true, but I did not believe these things until I came and saw with my own eyes. Indeed, not even half was told me. In wisdom and wealth you have far exceeded the report I heard. How happy your people must be. How happy your officials, who continually stand before you and hear your wisdom. Praise be to the Lord your God, who has delighted in you and placed you on the throne of Israel. Because of the Lord's eternal love for Israel, he has made you king to maintain justice and righteousness." She gave the king 120 talents of gold, large quantities of spices, and precious stones. Never again were so many spices brought in as those the Queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. The ships of Hiram also brought gold from Ophir, and from there they brought great cargoes of almug wood and precious stones. The king made supports for the temple of the Lord and for the royal palace, as well as harps and lyres for the musicians. So much almug wood has never been imported or seen to this day. King Solomon gave the Queen of Sheba all she desired and asked for, besides what he had given her out of his royal bounty. Then she left and returned with her retinue to her own country. The weight of gold that Solomon received yearly was 666 talents, not including the revenues from merchants, traders, and from all the Arabian kings and the governors of the territories. King Solomon made 200 large shields of hammered gold. 600 shekels of gold went into each shield. He also made 300 small shields of hammered gold, with 3 minas of gold in each shield. The king put these shields in the palace of the forest of Lebanon. Then King Solomon built a great throne of ivory and overlaid it with fine gold. However, some aspects of his life were unpleasant and not so fair, such as his marriage to 700 wives and 300 concubines, which are startling. According to 1 Kings chapter 11 verses 1 to 13, Solomon loved many foreign women in addition to the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonian, and Hittite women. These were nations about which the Lord had told the Israelites, "You must not intermarry with them, because they will surely turn your hearts after their gods." Nevertheless, Solomon held fast to them in love. He had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines, and his wives led him astray. As Solomon aged, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. He followed Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites. Solomon did evil in the eyes of the Lord. He did not follow the Lord completely as David his father had done. On a hill east of Jerusalem, Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the abominable god of Moab, and for Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites. He did the same for all his foreign wives, who burned incense and offered sacrifices to their gods. The Lord became angry with Solomon because his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. Although he had commanded him not to follow other gods, Solomon did not keep the Lord's command. Therefore the Lord said to Solomon, "Since this is your attitude, and you have not kept my covenant and my decrees which I commanded you, I will most certainly tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your subordinates. Nevertheless, for the sake of David your father, I will not do it during your lifetime. I will tear it out of the hand of your son. However, I will not tear away the entire kingdom. I will give one tribe to your son for the sake of David my servant, and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen." The lust, weakness, and lack of discipline in his relationships with women led God to turn away from him until he lost almost everything he possessed. This is recounted in 1 Kings chapter 11, verses 28 to 40. At that time, Jeroboam was a prominent man, and Solomon, seeing how well the young man did his job, put him in charge of the whole labor force of the house of Joseph. At that time, Jeroboam left Jerusalem, and the prophet Ahijah the Shilonite met him on the road. They were alone in the field, and Ahijah took hold of the new cloak he was wearing and tore it into 12 pieces. "Take 10 pieces for yourself," he said to Jeroboam, "for this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. See, I am going to tear the kingdom out of Solomon's hand and give you 10 tribes. But for the sake of my servant David and the city of Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, he will have 1 tribe. I will do this because they have forsaken me and worshipped Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, Chemosh, the god of Moab, and Molech, the god of the Ammonites, and have not walked in obedience to me, doing what is right in my eyes and keeping my statutes and laws as David, Solomon's father, did. However, I will not take the whole kingdom out of Solomon's hand. I have made him ruler all the days of his life for the sake of David my servant, whom I chose and who obeyed my commands and decrees. I will take the kingdom from his son's hands and give it to you, 10 tribes. Yet to his son I will give 1 tribe, so that David my servant may always have a lamp before me in Jerusalem, the city where I chose to put my name. Nevertheless, for your part, I will take you, and you will rule over all that your heart desires. You will be king over Israel. If you do whatever I command you and walk in obedience to me and do what is right in my eyes by keeping my decrees and commands, as David my servant did, I will be with you. I will build you a dynasty as enduring as the one I built for David and will give Israel to you. I will humble David's descendants because of this, but not forever. Solomon tried to kill Jeroboam, but Jeroboam fled to Egypt to King Shishak and stayed there until Solomon's death. Solomon, who once was the beloved leader of the 12 tribes of Israel, was left with only one tribe as his legacy. His life teaches us that even the most celebrated heroes have weaknesses that need to be faced if they are to finish their journey steadfastly. If you seek to prosper and achieve fulfillment in all areas of your life, you may want to learn how biblical faith and wisdom can transform your relationship with money and lead you to a more prosperous life.